You are listening to UpTalk with Sean Conahan. The gloves are off, and it's time to have a chat.
Hello, people, and welcome to episode 10 of the podcast. We're in double digits now, so we're legit. Thank you for helping and supporting the podcast. This episode, of course, is brought to you by my awesome sponsors, the Compass Rose Health and Wellness Center in Bedford, Rest Ed Seminars, Dan Sun Photography, and Life Shield First Aid Training. You can check them out at my website, UpTalkPodcast.com, your one-click stop for everything UpTalk. Check them out, please, and everything else on the website. That would be great. As always, a trigger warning before we get into the podcast. Some topics discussed during our conversation may trigger you if you have those issues, so make sure you're in a good headspace before you start to listen so you can get the most out of the podcast. Our guest on this episode is Allan Kobayashi, who is an active member of the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as co-founder of Light On PTSD. Ended up being an awesome conversation, one that I really enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed too. So let's get to it. Hi, Allan, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Sean.
It's a big pleasure for me to have you on, and I just thank you for taking the time. I know we're at opposite ends of the country, so it's a little bit hard to schedule up sometimes.
It's all good, brother.
Awesome. Well, at first, I just want you to just maybe let our listeners know who you are, where you came from, and your journey of mental health.
Yeah, my name is Allan Kobayashi, and actually I have a 19-year plus serving member within the Canadian Armed Forces. I started when I was 17 years old, directly out of high school, and I joined with 1 Princess Patricia's Canadian Infantry.
Right.
I got in when I was nice and young, and by the time I was 18, I was already serving over in Kosovo during the war.
Right.
And at my 19th birthday. Yeah, so most of my stuff came from the military. So basically, by the time I had my 19th birthday, I've already started discovering things such as mass graves and dealing with some pretty traumatic events.
Wow. Yeah.
And being so young, and especially being impressionable and being around, majority alphas, it was pretty much, without question, where I began to learn about stuffing and isolating and not being honest about this type of stuff that was really starting to have a huge impact on me.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and then soon and shortly later, Afghanistan and a couple tours and so going from the mass graves to urban and desert warfare was again a pretty hard and traumatic time. And that's where more of a mess and chaos within really started again. By the time I got home from my last tour in Afghanistan, I was physically and mentally just drained. I was done. A wife and 2 young daughters, and none of the 3 I really knew anymore.
Right.
My wife, thank God, gave me an ultimatum. And that's when I really started to seek some help. I mean, I was getting in trouble with the law. I was doing some alternative things that I shouldn't have been, including excessive amounts of drinking and everything else. And
right. Now, Allan, how long after you got home did your wife give you that ultimatum? Like, how long have you been home?
Things are so different. When I came back from Kosovo, my wife and I we were seriously dating.
Right.
We weren't even married yet, so I mean, I think that there was the delay of even saying anything, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So I mean, everyone told me, including friends and close friends, my parents and everybody that was close to me were saying the common things. What's wrong? You're different?
Right, yeah.
And kept asking me. And I mean, a lot of it, it's pretty much instantaneous.
Right.
It's pretty much instantaneous, the change, the difference in with the people, being very vocal about my drinking and about my fighting and about my behavior, both sober and not.
Now, did you know that there was a problem, or did you just figure everybody's giving you a hard time?
You know, when it comes to, I don't know. I think at time, because I was in such a haze, you know, through so much drinking. I think that in the bottom of my gut, I knew there was something up.
Right.
Could I put my finger on it and define it? No. I knew that I couldn't sleep. I knew that it was the littlest things would set me off. I knew that everyone close and dear to me, I was pushing away. And so, I think there was, and I think everybody else knew, but none of which we wanted to admit to.
Right.
And including myself, I didn't want to admit there was something wrong with me. I mean, I was just, yeah. I was really just feeling that there was, you know, I needed to grow up. I needed some experience. I needed to do something in order to stop it.
Right. And so she gives you this ultimatum, and then what happens then?
Well, she gave me an ultimatum, basically, you know, we're done. If you don't seek out help, kind of thing. And so I went to mental health services on base, and I said, hey, you know, apparently I got a problem. You know, and so they kind of looked at me and laughed and giggled and said, well, what do you mean you got a problem? I said, I don't know, I'm really freaking angry.
Right.
So all the joking stopped, and they basically gave me the generic general test, and they found that, well, yeah, you're excessively angry. So I did some anger management, and then about 2 months later, I was given a clean bill of health, and off I went. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, for that part, you know, it was pretty quick, and it was very elementary. There wasn't really much to it. So I went on my merry way with the training and going out and doing everything impossible I could as a young infanteer could. So it wasn't too shortly after that. I mean, then me and my wife married, and then we have our family now, and the alcohol and the drinking and everything else didn't stop. The anger didn't stop. The fighting, the isolating, the withdrawing from people didn't stop.
Right.
But I was very capable of hiding what was truly going on. I was very capable of putting on that social mask when I needed to blend in, so people didn't ask a lot of questions.
Right. Yeah.
You know, even though the stress, the chaos, and all the crap that was going on at home, on the outside, everything was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know that well. Yeah, for sure.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, we only hurt the ones that are closest to us.
That's very true.
Yeah, and then there soon after, I got deployed to Afghanistan, Roto Zero in Kabul,
right?
Which was the stronghold at the time of the Taliban. So we got that whole journey there. So by the time I got home from Afghanistan, again, everything was completely different. I mean, there was parts of me I didn't even want to go home. I didn't want to leave unfinished business. I didn't want to be anywhere else besides, you know, my family I knew there and I trusted.
Yeah.
Everything home was foreign. Everything was different. And it scared the living crap out of me. And then that's when, you know, I put in my paperwork to do what's called an occupational transfer. And I needed out of the combat arms. I needed away from that type of environment.
Right.
And that was my first real admittance to myself that, you know, here I am drinking a 40-pounder a night and walking a straight line.
Right.
You know, and everything else I was doing, everything else physically that was happening to my body with my hips, my ankles, my lower back, everything else. It was time to do something. So I joined the Royal Canadian Navy at that time.
So what year would that have been, Alan, when you did that?
I got home from my last tour in Afghanistan in 2004. So by 2005,
right,
I was thus in the Royal Canadian Navy.
Wow.
Learning how to be a sailor, so... And in fact, that was, in one way, it was a good thing, but in a totally other way, it was kind of what enabled me to, you know, get even further into my sickness. And
well, yeah, because even though it's a different arm of the armed forces, aren't you just doing this? You're just doing the same. You're encountering the same feelings, are you not?
Well, basically, yeah, because in the infantry, you're up front, you're the tippy end of the spear.
Right.
You're in same thing with all the partying and aspects of dealing with your emotions and feelings and enabling the stuffing. And then in the Royal Canadian Navy, yeah, you're in another part of the Canadian Forces. You're still considered, everything as you normally would. However, the environment itself is a little bit different. The culture, the society. So in the infantry, it was still very much at night and the weekends. You had your drinking and your ability to go out with the boys and let off some steam, as the old would say.
Right.
Whereas in the Navy, it's very accepted. It's very 24/7. It's in your face. It's tradition. It's Royal Canadian tradition. This tradition, that. So right after work or during lunch even, you'd have a beer, a couple lollipops. So by the time I got in the Royal Canadian Navy and how my life and everything had changed and dramatically changed,
right,
to leaving the infantry where I thought things were going to be good and putting into an environment when it was so much easier for me to isolate through alcohol, through any aspects in regards to deflecting from what was actually going on inside. In the Navy, believe it or not, I was away from home a lot more. I mean, there was years when out of the 365 days a year, I'd only be home, I'd be gone for 280 of them all around the world. So, I mean, I was never really home to deal with a lot of the stuff that was going on in the first place.
Right, and when you were home, you were probably able to put up your shields for long enough for that short duration just to act like everything's okay before you get back on the boat.
You're absolutely correct. I was home for these short stints where it was basically enough to get on my wife's nerves to create the chaos within the house, and then off I went. I mean, my wife and I, we joked to this day that we wouldn't be married if it wasn't for the Canadian Forces, because without that, because it was pretty much when there's so much tension was right when I'd get deployed or I'd go on exercise or on course or something rather. So
right,
So I definitely, you're definitely right.
Huh. So then, how long were you in the Navy for, or are you still in the Navy now?
I still am right now. I'm getting medically released. I'm getting kicked out of the Canadian Forces because of my post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay. So when did that all come up then?
So I got in the Navy and it was really easy to stuff and hide and all this other kind of stuff. But, again, my wife's like, listen, I'm not even kidding anymore. This is it. And they're pretty much out the door.
Right.
So it was literally in 2005 I went, and that's when the psychiatrists kind of saw through my story, saw through the cloak and said, something's not adding up here. So one thing led to another, and I was finally diagnosed in 2005 with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I started to go in through the mental health services and acquiring help and getting the help I needed.
How did you find that at that time, as far as, because PTSD was, I mean, it's still new now, so it must have been, it was in its infancy then as far as being talked about or being diagnosed.
Especially in the Navy, it was an infantry thing. It was a combat arms thing. So when they found out about, me being in the war in Kosovo and same thing, the war in Afghanistan, they red flagged me.
Right.
But one thing I became really good at was being the chameleon, was the ability to change and manipulate.
Right.
So in 2005, when they first started, trying to treat me for something, there was still a big part of it, which was, my drinking and everything else I was doing, including codeine and everything else, right? So as much as I was saying, it was helping me, I was still self-medicating. So I was able to deflect, I was able to hide, I was able to isolate. And let's be honest, I didn't really want to fully admit how severe and how bad things were.
Right.
I didn't want to admit about the multiple thoughts, the multiple times when I actually planned out, to take my own life, about all the different stuff that was going on at home, about all the different absolute horrible things that were happening within my life, both in my career and in my home life.
Yeah.
So I went probably another 5 years through the system of manipulating, and it wasn't until 2011 when one of my psychiatrists, because I kept changing psychiatrists because they were getting warm, they were getting close to me.
Yeah.
They were trying to they were getting to learn me, and that's when I was like, nope, I don't like you. And I'd switch psychiatrists and start all over again, so to speak.
You would find a problem and then... Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything and everything to protect, to hide what was going on inside, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's when another vet reached out and basically shook me up.
Oh, great.
He basically said, I used to like you.
Huh.
Now I freaking can't stand you.
Wow.
What the hell's going on with you? And it got pretty physical.
And you still remember that vividly, that conversation? And
100%. Yep. It's kind of what with my wife giving me ultimatum, and this guy I highly and deeply respect, and I won't say his name just to keep it anonymous. It rattled me to my very core. And that's what really made me focus on seeking honest, sincere help.
Right.
And getting
being honest in the process yourself.
That's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Is being honest. But yeah, I needed kind of like a fresh start. I need someone that'd be able to have that power and that ability and that knack for calling me on my BS.
Right. Absolutely.
So by 2011 is really when I really start being honest and really active and really getting into and getting away from what other people thought and totally getting out of that process, with the stigma and the dark cloud that surrounds it. Because that's what a lot of it, the other part of it was with my own fears and stuff was about, what people are going to say, what people are going to think.
Well, especially as a soldier, you are in my opinion, a soldier is the pinnacle, the tip of the whole first responder pyramid as far as what you guys see and go through and what you commit to doing. I mean, you don't want to ever admit that you may not be ready or that you might not be able to do a job,
Yeah, that's from day one as a kid. It was deep-seated. I mean, from day one as a young boy, I was at Halloween. I was just dressed up as G.I. Joe. I was dressed up as the Special Forces guy. That's all I ever wanted to do growing up. So by the time at a high school, I knew I was going to go in the infantry. I was going to, go and get some and kill and be the hardcore super soldier, that's what it was about. Yeah. So when I got an opportunity to actually go, I was super excited. Being overseas, I was tickled to death. Until stuff started happening, stuff that I came to realize that I didn't like. But then all the people around me and all these alphas and people I looked up to were just eating it all up and just portraying this image that this was what men and being a man's all about. So yeah, I was absolutely terrified to admit to them, let alone admit to myself that this isn't what I like. This is horrible. This is absolutely 100% not what I want to be a part of or who I want to be defined as or anything. And so yeah, it was really difficult. And added that with the stigma that was going around mental health and the stigma about and about even admitting that you were potentially weak or having problems. Oh God, it was like 1,000-pound weight on the chest, right? Yeah,
well, absolutely. I couldn't imagine because, like I said, just for a soldier at that time to have to go through that and the stigma, and then so obviously I'm guessing you had some probably negative interactions afterwards. Did you have friends that used to be friends that fell off and?
For sure. Yeah. For sure. But it was more the close friends. At work, it was just kind of seen as the norm. For me, I got more into the different social groups and aspects with the drinking and hiding from it type thing. And
right.
But in infantry and stuff, you don't really talk about it. And that's the other part of it, right?
Right.
You don't socialize, get drunk, and talk about a lot of the heaviness. You don't go socialize and drink and say, hey, I remember when I dug up 19 dead bodies on my 19th birthday.
Wow.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't sit there and talk about the first time you were shot at.
The whole reason you're drinking is try to forget those things. You don't want to talk about them.
That's exactly it. When that stuff does come, you create chaos. You create a ruckus. You start a fight. You start something else.
Right.
Deflect and get away from anything, right?
Yeah.
And that's infantry, and that's being a soldier, and that's being the pointy on the stick. But even in the Royal Canadian Navy, it's the same way. My dad used to talk shop talk, and it was the same thing. He talks about the guys getting together, but as soon as you start talking about these things called feelings, everyone kind of ran away. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I got some good friends in EMS with police and fire, and to me, I kind of giggle, but at the same time, I don't think it's any different. Maybe the traumas are different, but in what we see and what we're involved in, what we are exposed to as first responders or as anything, but I think that the social aspect and the stigma and the fear, I think, is generally the same.
I often, my opinion about communication, and I assume that you would have been the same probably at work if you're on a battlefield for you or during an operation. I would guess you're probably one of the best communicators there can be. You're communicating, strategically and, when all this chaos is going on around you and it could be, you're juggling a whole bunch of things at once and you have to be great communicators. But when you for some reason, when you walk inside your house, your four walls of your house, and talking to your wife and your kids, you can't communicate one single emotion honestly or well or really engage or connect with them. I find it's such a weird thing.
Yeah. I didn't even know what a feeling was. I became pretty numb. I became a mute. My vocabulary of feelings was happy, angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I went through a lot of help and through different programs. I mean, I remember getting a piece of paper with all the different emoticons, or what do you want to call those?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What happy looks like, what ecstatic looks like. Because I really honestly didn't know 95% of the feelings I was having. I mean, I learned to shut that down and stuff until I no longer knew what it actually was and defined.
Right.
And you're absolutely so dead on the money. Coming home to the four walls, yeah. I mean, my wife and my two daughters. I mean, Christ.
For me, it's the most terrifying thing. Almost one of the most terrifying things I do now is to make sure I walk in the door and communicate well and be engaged in what they're doing and not drift off. And it's a tall task some days.
It's true, right?
Yeah.
I think I've done that to both my wife and my daughters, that that when they have feelings, they stuff them, and they're almost scared of them, because at the same time, for the longest time, let alone me not having feelings, nobody around me was allowed to have feelings around me, because it'd make me, or I would at least have the same type of residual empathetic feelings, and it scared the living shit out of me, or it was a feeling I didn't no longer liked or wanted or want anything to do with. So I would again make something happen in order to change the situation. So my kids and my wife learned to not have feelings either. So
right.
It's hard.
Everybody tiptoes around you.
Oh, absolutely. And I think anybody with post-traumatic stress and anybody with a family would be able to relate 100%. I think our families have the residual PTSD and suffer in silence as well, right?
Oh my God, it's horrible. I can't even imagine when I think about it sometimes. Just what the family goes through because of our inability to communicate, to filter out the things in our head it's horrendous, really. It can be.
I hear you. 100%. I agree.
So in 2011, when you started getting honest help, and then, so did you try many different therapies or different types of things?
Oh, from EMDR to cognitive theory to prolonged exposure.
Wow. So how did you find EMDR? Because that's what I take. That's what I do.
Well, right now I'm back on it. So I started with cognitive treatment, therapy, and then I went to prolonged exposure, which was horrific, and then...
Yeah, what's prolonged exposure? I've never even heard of that.
Well, prolonged exposure is they find a trigger. So one of my big triggers for me, and I still have a really hard time with it, is different audible sounds.
Right, absolutely, okay.
So you'd be exposed for a prolonged period of time with the sound, with the trauma, and you're talking through it. So as a feeling would come, as an emotion, you're basically talking about it. You're talking about it so it's no longer has as grave an impact on you. It no longer... you just build a tolerance, is from what I understand.
That seems like torture, emotional torture.
At points. I mean, it's slow but sure. It's not all at once. You're not reliving the whole thing, but it's definitely bits and pieces here and there, and it was really freaking hard, and it definitely wasn't something that I enjoyed.
Right.
And then right now, EMDR is what I'm doing right now, and I don't know, it's hit or miss. I have a really...
Right.
Right now, we're looking at different medications to potentially increase the overall effectiveness, I guess.
Right.
And as you can relate, one of the parts of it is just basically through audible or physical touching sensations, working through a trauma. So it basically, it's no longer such a heavy impact. It's a memory, but your body doesn't react.
We use the light bar, so I'm going back and forth with my...
Oh, yeah. I got audible cues. I get a headset on my head, so it's just frequent. Okay. Yeah, from one ear to the other ear, so it's pretty messed up. But, because when I get triggered and, starting to sweat and the heart rate's going up and it's pretty freaking hardcore, he was looking at potentially putting me on medication, like beta blockers, to help my body stay calm while we're working through the traumas. And that's just... one of my biggest things since I got sober for 3 years now, I don't like to take any type of drugs, medication.
Right.
I don't like to take anything. Do it all natural.
Now, I have a question, and I'm not by any means a professional or know this stuff, but
No, right, man.
just listen to your story now. If a lot of your triggers are audible in nature, which is totally understandable, then using a form of EMDR that uses audible triggers to work you through it, wouldn't that be more difficult because just where your issues are audible, like, you know what I mean? Because there's other ways to do EMDR, as you know, with either the light, like with just following your eyes back and forth. I just don't know if you've ever, like, for me, if that was my big issue, I wouldn't want to go through something that was just constantly pushing sound in my ears.
It's just kind of, like white noise. You know, like white noise on a TV,
right?
And it's in a very low range, but basically what it sounds like from one ear to the next. Okay. And for me, I don't know. Maybe that's why he picked it. Maybe because I am an audible guy, a tactile guy. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe it's the opposite. Like you say, maybe you need to do that in order to really.
So, but one of those things where I leave it up to pros and hopefully. I mean, there's some points when I think that there's progress being made, so I can't knock it. But I think there's some parts that, for me, is really fucking difficult. Part of my language is really difficult, and it's really, really, really hard. So I'm really working on it, and just seeing it goes, and done a couple of sessions and taking a break, and
well, I think that's I think you nailed it. I mean, just the fact that everybody's different, everybody's experience is different. I mean, EMDR for me, with my memories, packaged them up beautifully for me and really helped. However, there are many other sorts of therapies, and everybody needs to sort of, tweak the therapy to what's going to help them, I assume.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
And then, so you're going through this, and then at what point did you decide that you want to help other people?
Well, part of this, one of the things when I wasn't talking to some professional or in a group or in treatment or something rather, I had nothing to do, nothing to really help ground me besides these techniques, and a lot of them wasn't working for me. So I literally, just got physical. I'd start running and cycling and hiking and walking, and it was actually when I started running, I found this new ability to just get away from myself, to find freedom, to ground, to be solid. And it was something that was so free and readily available. Get worked up and start to get triggered and just messed up. And I'd breathe, do some exercises, put the runners on, I'd go.
Well, Dan, were you a runner before, or did you? I know, obviously, you're military training, you probably do some running, but were you?
Exactly it.
You weren't necessarily a runner, because what I've heard is, and I'm not a runner. My 265-pound body doesn't like him well to long distance running, but hopefully that'll change in the near future. But what I've always heard, because I have a few friends who are big into running and big into cycling, and I kind of envy them, because what they talk about is this: once you break this barrier and you start to run, you almost get into a meditative, trance-like, sort of elevated state. I find a lot of people
100% agree. 100% agree.
And it's 100% talk about it. And so is that something that you get to?
Yeah, I started running, and I'd run with the music loud, and just sometimes it'd be the god awful, the hate tunes just to get you motivated, so to speak, and sometimes it'd be these tranquil hymns from some Christian soundtrack or whatever. But in all honesty, now when I used to go for big long runs, but now I'm more into cycling, but when I go for big long runs, I'd actually put earplugs in my head. I'd put just regular old soft squishy earplugs, because then when I was running, all I could hear is my feet hitting the ground, my freaking breathing, and my heart beating. And it was the only way at the time I found that I can get out of my head and just be a runner. I wasn't Allan Kobayashi the soldier. I wasn't Allan Kobayashi the sailor. I wasn't anybody. I was just running. And it was a way that I could actually connect. And that was some of the, if not the most powerful tool, and even to this date, that I found that just helps me. Because even with music and all that stuff, certain tunes or certain songs or certain this would get me sad or angry, and it'd start kind of playing that emotional roller coaster with me. So that's why I stopped originally, and I found it was such an amazing experience that I continue to do it to this day.
Well, I mean, we all know, we've all been told how exercise helps with depression. You know, it releases endorphins and other, you know, chemicals in your head that make you feel good, they make you feel nice, make you feel happy and connected.
Absolutely.
But I think, you know, but then there's this long distance, something specifically that I hear about long distance running and cycling is that it's just this other level when you break through and are able to do it well, that it's just a whole other level of being able to meditate and, like you said, get outside yourself and really work on issues.
Yeah, I think that it can go with anything. I don't think it just has to be anything running or cycling long distance. I think it's anything to do with endurance or physical. You know, whether it's hiking, climbing. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's just endless possibilities, and I think it's so, just as us as individuals and human beings are so different. I think so is the physical aspects, but definitely something about endurance and about pushing the bodies to the next level or to that extreme or to that point. Absolutely. I can't agree with you anymore. You know, it was through that I actually found ultra marathoning and ultra running. And that's when I really start getting into other stuff. And so
explain what an ultra marathon is.
Well, ultra marathoning is anything, by definition, is anything further than a distance of a marathon.
Okay.
So generally, ultra marathons start at 50 kilometers. You can go all the way up to 150 miles.
Wow.
They're usually completed within a day. So my last ultra marathon, you know, I've done multiple marathons. I've done a couple ultras, including a 50 and an 80K. And I just loved it. I loved not only the physical, but the mental, like we were just talking about. I loved getting into the zone, so to speak, and completing this physical test of endurance and just pushing to the next level, as we were talking about.
Do you find it harder? Just a question when you were talking about distances. Do you find at some points you have to go further in order to get the same sort of euphoric or the meditative state? Like you have to keep pushing it. Like you can't just.
No, I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think so. But I think that's one of the cool things about running and cycling and everything else and these physical attributes is that it's the one time when I truly do feel like I'm in control. You know, when it's running, if I want to go super hard, I pick up the pace. If I just want to relax, then I slow down. Right. You know, and I think that's part of it that was so attractive is having, you know, my hands on the steering wheel, for lack of a better term, and being able to really control the stimulus. I didn't have some outside. I didn't have somebody else. I didn't have this uncontrollable thing dictating. It was me. And I found comfort in that too.
Now, have you ever done float therapy?
Yeah, actually.
What do you think of that?
Don't like it.
You don't like it?
No. I tried one float and I was done.
Really? So what was it for you?
It's too quiet. It's too quiet and it's too, I don't know. It's something that just messes with me. I don't know.
Really? No, that's cool to hear. No, for sure. I find it is hard to get used to the silence of it. So I've done it now.
Yeah, there's too much that goes into the old brain.
But now then again, but then you say that when you're running though, you put earplugs in.
I know, but I still have that constant noise of my heartbeat, my breathing, and my feet hitting the ground, right?
Pounding of your feet, yeah, for sure.
So it's definitely different, but I guess there's just that, and I don't know, man. It's just a way that I get into my head sometimes with that. Yeah. Again, I only tried it the once, so I'd be pretty ignorant to be basing any opinions off of, right? No, but, a lot of first instinct, though, of a lot of times it's right, because you know what you like, you know what you don't like, usually. Yeah. But I mean, totally. That's cool. No, that's a cool perspective. I never thought of that before. So but that's where I started the whole, with the running and everything. Right. I mean, that's when I first started my first big charitable thing. And I mean, I was already when I was getting help and seeing a psychiatrist and, getting treatments and everything else, I was also looking up at all those external resources, outside, all the charities like the Wounded Warriors Canada and Thumbs Up and all these other people that are out there to help people with post-traumatic, with the visible and non-visibles.
Yes.
And that's when I really started getting motivated with the running, how I felt, and actually starting to feel that I was making progress and I was recovering and I was opening up, basically. And that's when I organized my first charitable run for Wounded Warriors Canada.
Now, when would that have been, do you think?
That was in 2013.
Okay.
2012.
And that, so you did that. Yeah, 2013. So you did that and it went well. You were happy with it?
And I saw so many people. So 3 years doing the Wounded Warrior Run BC here on Vancouver Island.
Right.
And we, over 5 days, we touch every single community. We touch so many people and interact. I really start seeing things. I really start seeing that there's a gap, that for so long, post-traumatic stress disorder was such considered a military thing.
Right.
As well as a military EMS thing. It was, people that saw traumas through their careers, through their jobs.
Right.
And I felt, and I personally saw that for a lot of people's understanding, it was defined by what we did as a living. Whether you're a firefighter, a police officer, paramedic, or a soldier, Canadian Force, or anybody, those are the people that got post-traumatic stress disorder. Because they saw it. They did it.
Yeah.
And I really started asking a lot of people, and looking at the definition of PTSD, it's a human or a person who witnesses a trauma and how their body deals with it, basically.
Right.
And that's when I really started changing my views and opinions about being restrictive of who I reach out and who I want to help and who I want to touch. And that's kind of the birth of Light On PTSD. So I went from having an umbrella of just only reaching out and touching EMS and military personnel,
right,
who suffer in silence, who, that we can all relate to,
yep,
to anybody and everybody, young to the old, who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's where my focus is right now. I love my brothers and sisters, and I'll be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And
right,
my arms are always open, my ears are always ready, and, I'm always willing. And just broadening the horizon now, so to speak.
So with that, obviously you're the co-founder of Light On PTSD, which is a website. And so tell us about the kind of things you guys do.
Well, on Light On PTSD, right now, Light On is all about raising awareness through education, reaching out and touching as many people, and human-to-human contact is the number one thing.
Right.
As well as bringing people together in a place, in a sense of community where it's okay to be us. It's okay to be me. It's okay to have a bad day, and it's okay to communicate because you get it.
Right.
And everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And through as many events as we can, I was going to say several, but it's as many events as we can, going out and just kind of through our own stories, potentially enabling people to find within their own confidence in their own selves to speak up, to speak out, to maybe even find through, some available resources and information that we have to find help for themselves. The biggest piece is to be the human-to-human contact, the human-to-human face. Because I've been saying for quite a while now, it's great we can have multi-million-dollar charities with multi-billion-dollar facilities with the greatest minds in the world working at these facilities. But if we don't have people like yourself, Sean, or me, Paul, or anybody else actually being willing to open ourselves up and actually talk to people,
right,
to go and say, hey, I understand, and tell our stories, all that stuff falls on deaf ears.
No, because
it's building the trust. It's building that respect. It's being there and being open and honest that allows people to find within themselves. And I think that's where Light On's a wee bit different, and why I'm so eager and so excited and everything about it. And do we do a lot of physical stuff? Yeah, but exactly what we talked about.
Right.
About the amazing, beautiful tool that it is for us. An amazing and beautiful tool it is to be able to showcase and to reach out and touch people.
So do you guys do charity runs through Light On now? Is that what some of what you do?
Well, Light On PTSD, Light On PTSD. So Light On is our NPO. We just became a month and a bit ago a registered NPO.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're pretty excited. But we're going to be doing a whole bunch of different events, and actually this July is our first event ever, and we're trying to go national, and we're trying to make this day in July the national, if not international, if not the world day. We decided, because Light On PTSD and because post-traumatic stress disorder, as you're very well aware, is 24/7. It's not a part-time thing. It's 24/7.
Right.
So the 24th day of the 7th month, being July 24th, we're going to do a 24-hour bike ride in Stanley Park in BC, here on the mainland.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we're just leaving it open. That's it. We have 7 core riders on the team, and it's just from varying aspects of life. We have a police officer all the way to retired military personnel to our spouses.
Right.
And we are just having it out there and being available to anyone and everyone. Even if they don't even know what PTSD is, and they're kind of like, what is this? Come on and get some info. If you want to come and sit. If you want to run, walk, rollerblade. If you want to ride beside us, ride. And if you just want to come and wave, come and wave. So we're not restricting. We're not asking for anything. We're not posing as a charity. We're not doing anything. We're just the one simple, just getting out there right now.
Now, if people do want to donate, though, how can they do that?
They can go online and they can see our NPO number and register accordingly and get a hold of us, and we can take your donation as well.
Perfect. So let's say someone wants to do that. So how do people find you or Light On through social media? Where do they go?
Go on www.lightonptsd.com.
Perfect.
Or you can email me directly at allan@lightonptsd.com.
Perfect.
Or pardon me, allan@lightonptsd.gmail.
Oh,
or
cool.
at Gmail, whatever it is.
Perfect. No, and we'll have all these links up on the website. If you're hearing this, the links are already there. So we'll have all the links to all those things for you for sure. So I mean, what else are you involved with? What else do you want to talk about? What else is a passion?
The biggest, I'm so eager and so wanting to just be able to jump into other people's chest and say, it's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And spread the good word that, it's okay to step through the fear to get where we want. Yeah. It's okay to have those doubts and worries, and that you're not alone.
Right.
I think one of the greatest things I've ever learned in in this journey, in this quest, in this path, is that I am not terminally unique.
Right.
I am not such an individual who is so special, who is so unique, and who has done these unique things that has never been talked about.
Yeah.
That's never been done in the past. That's one thing that kept me sick. I thought I was the only one that ever took a human life the way I did.
Right.
I thought maybe I'm the only one who ever saw a mass gravesite on his birthday. Maybe I'm the only one who's ever done half the stuff I've done. But in all reality, it's not true. Yeah. There's just this thing called an ego, this thing called pride, and mixed in a whole lot of fear and anxiety kept me believing in them. And I think that's one thing I love about this process of stepping through the fear, about being honest with ourselves, is finding other people that I can relate to that that say, holy crap, that's so true. That's so.
Well, that's what I try to do too. I mean, if I'm talking to a group, I tell them many times during my talk, I'll tell them some experiences I went through, and at the end of each one, I look at them and go, but I'm not unique. Like, I'm not, this happens to thousands of people. It's going to happen to one in every 3 of you sitting here watching me. It's going to happen to.
Right.
Like,
right.
I'm not unique. We're all special as human beings, but what I go through is not a unique experience. It's not.
See, that's one of the big things about Light On. I mean, we all have our stories, right?
Yeah.
We all have our traumas. We all have these demons that we wrestle with and that we're learning slowly but surely. Pardon me, at least I'm learning slowly but surely how to deal, how to live, how to cope, how to overcome.
Right.
How to be okay with me and be better. And a lot of charities out there and a lot of things out there focus on the stories, focus on the negative, and we don't want to. We don't want to focus on the negative. We want to focus on the positive, on the light, on the end of the tunnel, or even get on the other side of the tunnel into the light on the good stuff.
I could not be more on board with that. That's the whole reason why this podcast is called UpTalk, because we're trying to talk.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that's what's
aspects. Yeah.
And you look at a lot of the stuff, pardon me, I've looked at a lot of stuff, and I've tried to get involved in a lot of stuff, and I was always felt a little bit heavy. And I don't want to feel heavy.
No.
I want to feel good. I want to feel happy. I want to be positive. I want to be around positive people. And that's one of the big pieces to this is that, okay, good. Let's turn on the lights. Let's go. Wake up. Let's have fun. Let's do something about it. No longer living in our stories in the past. I want to live today. I want to live in the present.
No, that's so important.
Move forward. Yeah, I think so. And let's all, let's all do it together. Let's all just be vocal and be bright and just go for it, man.
Absolutely. Allan, before I let you go, if you could say something to, let's say we have a listener, a first responder or non-first responder going through some mental health issues, going through PTSD, what would you tell them? What would you say to them?
Oh, man.
They're in that dark place right now.
Here I am hesitating with a moment of fear and anxiety. What do you say?
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I think it's exactly that. Pick up that 1,000-pound phone and call somebody. Take the doorway through fear and go, even if it's your neighbor, and say, man, can I just talk to you for a moment? I think the biggest, most powerful thing that I could tell somebody that I did was admit to being afraid.
That's the strongest thing you can do.
Yes, man. I honestly have not met one person in the past 4 years of going around and talking, interacting with other people. Not one person who has never, ever said that they've never been afraid, never, ever been scared. And I've never met one person who still does not have that one trauma, that one experience in their life that they will not talk about because of their fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that overcoming fear, right? Stepping through that doorway of fear to get where we want to be. I think that's the biggest and greatest thing. That self-admittance that I'm afraid, I'm fearful, and that having that willingness to keep walking forward, man.
You put it so well, that 1,000-pound phone, because that's for me, one of my triggers now is I hate to use the phone. So
right,
the phone, and but to make that first call, to call somebody because you're in that place and you just need someone to come and lift you out. And
that's it, man.
It is a 1,000-pound phone for sure.
Yeah, right.
It totally is. But Allan, I can't thank you enough for taking time, and you have taught me so much, and thanks for letting me ask some questions about some things I didn't know about. But I love what you're doing. I love your perspective on it. I think it's dead on. If you ever want a real challenge, you can come to Nova Scotia and try to teach me how to long distance run. That would be wicked. That would be so good. Biggest challenge of your life, I'm telling you. Anyway,
oh, brother, it's all good.
I thank you so much. It's been a great chat, and just hearing your perspective on it, and what you went through and what you're doing with it is inspirational. And I know our listeners are going to find it so. And if you ever have anything new going on and you want to come back on the podcast, just let me know. Open invitation. Welcome to the community. And if we can ever help out in any way, and just thank you very much. And take care, and all the best to you and your family.
Thanks, brother.
No, it's my pleasure. And that wraps up another episode of UpTalk Podcast. I would like to again thank Allan Kobayashi for taking the time to talk to us and teach us a few things. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, thanks to my sponsors. You can check them out at uptalkpodcast.com. And thank you to all of you for continuing to support the podcast. You can help me out a couple ways. However you listen to the podcast, please subscribe to that medium. Subscribe to the channel on however you listen to it, as well as leave some feedback. That would be great. And rate the podcast. Also, we need some topics for Dr. McGee. So if you can email us some topics that you would like her to cover, some questions you have for her, that would be awesome. And you can just go to the website and scroll right to the bottom, and there's a spot there where you can message the podcast and let us know what you want to hear. So please do that. I'm not sure who the next guest is going to be on the podcast. I have a bunch of interviews lined up, but just not sure what order they're going to fall. So when I know, I'll let you know. And again, as always, until we speak again, be safe and take care of each other.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you sirens are gone.